subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The cage cracks. The air was too still. Commander Rian Holt crouched low behind a jagged outcrop of blackened stone, pulse thrumming in his ears, rifle gripped in both hands. A metallic whine echoed in the distance. Faint but distinct, the unmistakable sound of a patrol drone slicing through the underground corridors of Zereth 3. The planet Earth's charts had marked as uninhabitable. They were wrong. His boots, cracked and dust-covered, slid slightly against the damp stone. This place was no dead world. He had seen evidence: structures beneath the sand, artificial caverns, fragments of circuitry embedded in the walls, but nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he was about to find. A thin sliver of glowing cyan light caught his eye, bleeding through a crack in a rusted bulkhead ahead. He moved toward it slowly, one step at a time, rifle raised. The hum grew louder, electronic and unnatural, a low vibrational resonance that seemed to pulse through his bones. He reached the door. It wasn't metal, not entirely. It looked organic, fused alloy, and something else like petrified skin. The moment he touched it, it shifted beneath his hand, warm, responsive. The seal hissed open without warning. A room bloomed into view, dim, vast, lined with twisted pillars and glowing blue circuits crawling up the walls like veins, and at the center, a transparent chamber, cylindrical, lit from within. Inside it, suspended in the soft glow, was her. Her body floated, barely clothed, encased in tendrils of what looked like living tech, smooth vines of metal woven into her skin, cradling her limbs. She wasn't human, but she wasn't entirely alien either. Violet skin with faint shifting patterns like smoke under glass, long white hair suspended in liquid, drifting like silk, and her eyes closed until they snapped open, as if sensing him. They locked eyes. In that moment, Rian forgot how to breathe. She mouthed something silently at first, then her voice, soft and barely above a whisper, came through the intercom embedded in the wall. "You're not supposed to see me." Rian lowered his rifle slightly, confusion and instinct fighting in his gut. "What the hell is this place?" he asked aloud, more to himself than her. She didn't answer. Her hands pressed weakly against the inside of the chamber. "Please, leave," she said. "They'll see you too. They always do." "Who?" Rian asked. "Who's watching?" Her eyes flicked toward the far wall, at a panel pulsing red. Before Rian could follow her gaze, the ground trembled. A klaxon sounded somewhere deep within the walls. A voice, automated, alien, repeated a phrase he couldn't translate, but its urgency was clear. The door behind him sealed shut. He spun around. Lights flared across the ceiling. The chamber she was trapped in began to retract, sinking into the floor. "No," the woman cried. Without thinking, Rian sprinted forward, slamming his hand onto the panel at the base of the cylinder. The interface changed. It responded to his touch. Symbols rearranged. A new voice spoke, in English this time. "Genetic match confirmed. Containment override initiated." The chamber hissed. The vines recoiled from her skin like snakes withdrawing into holes. She collapsed, unconscious, into Rian's arms. He held her, stunned. Then came the whisper, not from her lips, but from within his own mind. "Now you've broken the cycle." 2 hours earlier, Rian's descent into the Zereth underworld had begun with a malfunction. His shuttle, the Astris, had been scanning for power signatures in the upper crust. When it was struck by an invisible EMP, he crash-landed in a dust storm, barely surviving the impact, only to discover a sinkhole beneath the rock, one that led to this. The deeper he went, the more the place defied logic. He had seen languages etched into the walls that matched both Mayan and Sumerian roots. He'd found floating data slates that showed visions of Earth's oceans and moon, as if someone had been watching for centuries. Now he was trapped, with no signal out. And now this woman, or whatever she was, had called him the breaker of a cycle. Present moment, she stirred in his arms. Rian laid her gently against a mossy platform beside the chamber. Her skin was warmer now, no longer pale and synthetic. Her breathing was steady. He knelt beside her, watching carefully. Her eyes opened again, vivid silver, reflective like water. "Why did you free me?" she asked. "Because you were a prisoner," Rian replied, scanning the room for danger. "You think I was locked away by force," she said quietly. "You don't understand. I was built for this cage." Rian frowned. "What does that mean?" She sat up slowly, brushing her long hair aside. "They called me Savia. I don't know if it's my real name. I don't know if I had one. I've been in this chamber for, she paused, thousands of your years. Maybe. Or maybe no time at all. Time bends in this place. Who put you here? The architects. The ones who built this world before your kind even lit fire. They experimented with hybrids, minds that could hold more than one history. I was the last one. Rian studied her carefully. Hybrids between what? She turned her gaze to him. Between them and you. Suddenly, alarms shrieked again. A wall at the far end of the room split open, revealing a tunnel with glowing steps descending deeper into the complex. The light was different, golden, pulsing in rhythm with Savia's breathing. I need to get you out of here, Rian said, standing. There has to be another route. No, she said, gripping his arm. This is the only way. Now, you released me. The protocols have started. He stared at her. What protocols? She looked afraid now, genuinely afraid. The moment I leave this chamber, I become known to them, to the systems watching this sector, to Earth. What does Earth have to do with this? Rian snapped. We've never been here before. Sevia's expression was heartbreaking. You've been here before, Commander Holt. You just don't remember. They ran through the golden tunnel, past doors that opened for no one but her. Under vaults that whispered Rian's name in languages he'd never spoken. Sevia moved with strange confidence, yet every step seemed to hurt her. She winced with each breath, her body flickering for a moment. Her form seemed to glitch, like a projection catching interference. What's happening to you? Rian asked as they paused at a junction. I'm not stable outside the pod, she replied. That chamber wasn't just a prison, it was containment. I was unfinished. Then we get you help. We find my ship, get you to a medbay. She shook her head. Your ship is gone. The EMP wasn't natural. It was me. I triggered it, subconsciously. It's what I was designed for, to draw on a match. A match. She looked up at him, trembling. Rian took a step back. You were selected generations ago, she said. Monitored through your dreams, your bloodline, your choices. The Holt genome carries a sequence they needed. I was supposed to activate when I saw you feel nothing, and then eliminate you. He blinked, but I didn't feel nothing. The corridor trembled. From behind them came the screech of metal and artificial growls. Patrol sentinels, ancient machines not entirely mechanical. Savia looked back, then forward. We're almost to the archive, she said. If we can get there, I can show you everything. As they sprinted again, Rian's mind reeled. The deeper they went, the more the architecture resembled Earth. Not just ancient civilizations, but modern blueprints, door shapes, safety signs, emergency indicators. It was as if humanity had been modeled after this place, not the other way around. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. A globe hovered above a crystal altar, blue and green earth, rotating slowly. Dozens of thin wires connected it to the walls, feeding data into unknown devices. Rian approached it. A small screen beside the globe flickered on. A photo appeared. It was him, but not from this mission. It was Rian at age 8, standing beside his childhood dog, in his own backyard. The photo had never been shared. It wasn't in any network. His hand trembled. Initiate Phase 3. Holt genome confirmed. The screen read. He turned to Sevilla, his voice low. What is this? Her voice was almost a whisper. This is the beginning of your real story. Voices, beneath the dust. The stillness in the archive chamber wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. Commander Rian Holt stood frozen. His eyes locked on the impossible photograph displayed on the floating screen. The colors were slightly faded, but the image was unmistakable. Himself, 8 years old, standing barefoot in the yard of a long-demolished house on Earth, holding a toy spaceship and grinning at the camera. He remembered that day. He'd cut his knee climbing a tree. His mom had taken the picture to distract him, but it had never been uploaded anywhere. No cloud storage, no backup files. He was certain. How do they have this? He whispered. Sevilla stood a few steps behind him, leaning against a cold obsidian pillar. Her body still flickered faintly, like a hologram straining to stay intact. Though she was very real, tangible, fragile. That image was pulled from your memory field, she said. The moment you stepped onto Zareth 3, the archive began syncing. With you. He turned, startled. That's not possible. My memories aren't on any network. They don't have to be, she said quietly. The architects didn't need your technology. They had their own way of listening. To thoughts? He asked, almost mockingly. To echoes, she replied. Traces left by strong emotion, especially from genetically significant individuals, like you. Rian shook his head. You keep saying things like that. Significant genome. Cycle breaker. What the hell does that mean? Savia moved toward the orb hovering over the altar, a model of Earth slowly spinning in place, tethered to the archive walls by glowing threads. As she approached, lines of code began crawling across the surface of the orb. Some were in architect script unreadable to him, but others appeared in English, French, and even Mandarin. The Holt bloodline, she began, was selected centuries ago, before your planet knew it was being watched. You come from a family line seeded with trace architect markers. Your DNA holds instructions dormant until you arrived here. Instructions that can change this system. This system, Rian repeated slowly. You mean this world? No, she said. I mean the protocol that governs your entire sector of space. He stared at her. Earth isn't just a random speck in the galaxy. Sevilla continued. It was a candidate, a project, a test bit. You're saying we're some kind of experiment. She turned to him with solemn eyes. You're the result of one. A deep rumble shook the chamber. Rian instinctively raised his rifle and turned toward the echoing corridors beyond the archive. The golden hallway behind them dimmed, and a cold blue light replaced it, flickering like a dying star. They've found us, Savia said, voice tight. The Watchers are moving. Those drone things? Rian asked, checking his ammo count. Not drones, she said. Sentinels. They don't patrol, they correct anomalies. And freeing you is an anomaly. Exactly. Rian moved to her side, scanning for exits. We need to get you somewhere safe. There is no safe, she said. Not anymore. You disrupted a system that's existed untouched for millennia. The moment you unlocked my chamber, the higher protocols initiated. She placed her hand on the altar. The floating orb shuddered. A pulse spread outward, illuminating dozens of vertical slabs arranged in a circle around the room. Each slab lit up holographic figures, rising from them, humans, aliens, hybrids. All of them looked incomplete, half-formed, faded. What are they? Rian asked. Prototypes, Savia said, barely above a whisper. Failed merges. Some were too human, some too alien. All of them lacked one thing, choice. He looked at her, brow furrowed. They were programmed to obey, to follow orders, to become bridges between the species, but only on architect terms. I was different. I was designed to feel, to adapt, to bond. With a human, Rian said. Slowly, with you, she confirmed. Silence fell between them for a long moment. You said you were supposed to destroy me, he said. Why didn't you? I don't know, Sevilla replied. Maybe I failed. Or maybe I chose not to. Another quake shook the floor. One of the slabs shattered, spraying fragments of light into the air. Savia winced and stumbled. Rian caught her. Your body, he began. It's destabilizing, she said through clenched teeth. My systems are degrading the longer I stay out of containment. We need to move, Rian said. Now, she hesitated. There's one more place I can take you, she said. But it's deeper, buried beneath the original architect core. I've never been there, not fully. But something calls to me from below. Then we go together. 15 minutes later, the stairway was endless. They descended into the dark, guided only by the shifting light in Sevilla's skin and the occasional flare of their wrist lamps. The further down they went, the more bizarre the architecture became. Gravity-defying columns, stairs that bent sideways, walls that pulsed like veins. Eventually, they reached a massive chamber, carved into what looked like the heart of a dying star. A colossal sphere hovered in the center, surrounded by massive cables and glowing anchor points. Sevilla gasped. This is it, she whispered. The seed core. Rian stepped closer. The sphere reacted to him, lighting up in a spiral of blue and white symbols. A deep hum resonated from the core, vibrating the marrow in his bones. Welcome, Commander Rian Holt, a voice said, smooth, androgynous, synthetic, but familiar. Who, your guardian? The voice replied. Designate, core intelligence, subsystem, echogenesis. Rian's eyes narrowed. Echogenesis. I've heard that name before. In your dreams, the voice said. We implanted fragments across your early cognition. He looked at Savia. So it's true. She nodded, trembling. The voice continued. Savia is the final interface, the living bridge. You were meant to be her anchor or her end. Your choice determines the outcome. What outcome? The sphere glowed. Brighter. Humanity ascends or resets. Rian took a breath. You mean, I choose whether Earth continues to evolve with this technology, or it all gets wiped. Correct? Why me? You are the first Holt to reach this level. The first to unlock Savia's chamber. The first to reach the seed core unassisted. He turned to Savia. And what happens to you? Her voice was almost a whisper. If you choose reset, I die. If you choose ascent, I change. Change into what? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped toward the core. Her skin glowed, the flickering gone, her body stabilized. The chamber reacted to her presence like she was its heartbeat. I was made to bond with one mind, she said, but I don't want to be property. I don't want to be a tool. Rian walked to her side. You're not, he said firmly, not to me. He turned to the core. I make my choice, he said. I reject the reset. We move forward together. The core pulsed. So be it. A beam of light enveloped them both. Rian's body froze, not with fear, but with understanding. His mind expanded, visions of Sevia's creation, of Earth's observation from orbit, of the Holt ancestors who unknowingly carried the seed forward, and then silence. He collapsed. When he awoke, the chamber was still. The core was dark, but Savia was glowing, fully stabilized, no longer flickering. Her form now more human than alien. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. You chose me. I chose us, he said. She helped him up, and then footsteps echoed in the distance. From the far end of the stairwell, voices called out, human voices. Commander Holt, this is Search Team Alpha. We're here to extract. He stared in shock. Your team? Savia asked. He shook his head slowly. No, my team died in orbit. The humans reached them, but something was off. Their faces were familiar, too familiar. Savia grabbed his hand, fear returning to her eyes. They're not real, she said. They're constructs, duplicates. Why? He asked. To test you again. The lie of origin, the chamber echoed, with the sound of boots. Not one pair, not to 6 each. Step was steady, coordinated, identical. Rian's pulse quickened. The figures came into view, emerging from the pale mist at the far end of the stairwell. 6 humans in full tactical gear, visors down, weapons holstered. They bore Earth's insignia. UN, Stellar Navy. The same insignia Rian wore, but their faces. Each one of them had a face that made his breath catch. They were him, not just lookalikes, exact replicas, down to the scar above the eyebrow from a training incident during cadet school. Same gait, same small twitch in the left hand when idle. Even the expression, that half-fooled, half-haunted look he didn't know he wore until now, was perfectly mirrored. Don't move, Savia whispered beside him. One of the doppelgangers stepped forward. Commander Rian Holt, it said, voice neutral but resonant. You have reached the central decision chamber unauthorized. State your classification and cognitive clearance. The real Rian narrowed his eyes. You already know who I am. You are an anomaly, the construct replied. A failed variant that diverged from its designed path. You have formed an illicit bond with interface subject Savia. This bond is in direct violation of Protocol Eco 4, illicit. Rian snapped. She's not a tool. She's a person. Savia gripped his arm, her fingers trembling. Her skin had lost its glow again. They're part of the failsafe. The system doesn't recognize our choice. Another copy stepped forward. This facility was programmed to test combinations, human and hybrid, bond and loyalty, conflict and unity. All prior tests failed. Well, test this, Rian growled. He raised his weapon. But all 6 doppelgangers moved in unison, not toward him, but into each other. Their bodies merged, dissolving like smoke pulled into a vacuum, fusing into one glowing figure, taller, armored, and pulsing with blue light beneath the skin. Savia gasped. Protocol Guardian, the creature still wearing Rian's face, stepped closer. Its voice changed, now layered with tones that echoed like a dozen people speaking at once. You are the first anomaly to reach the seed core and reject the reset. Your bond was not predicted. Therefore, a new test begins. Rian moved in front of Savia, shielding her. I'm done playing your games. The Guardian cocked its head. Incorrect. You have only begun. And without warning, the chamber exploded with light. Time skipped, unknown interval, darkness. Then, pain. Rian opened his eyes. He wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was lying on a bed. No, a slab. A sterile, white room surrounded him. Monitors blinked softly. He looked down and saw that he was wearing a gray, skin-tight suit. No weapons, no gear, no sign of Sevilla. Sevilla, he shouted, voice ragged. A hiss answered him. The wall in front of him slid open. A figure stepped in. He braced himself, ready for another clone, another game. But it wasn't a clone. It was his mother. Mom, he breathed. She looked just like he remembered her. Hair tied back, wrinkles near the eyes, the gentle, tired smile she always wore when he stayed up too late, reading spaceflight manuals as a child. But she had died 10 years ago. This isn't real, he whispered. She stepped closer and touched his shoulder. The warmth was perfect. The scent of her laundry soap, the slight tremor in her hands. It's real enough, she said softly. Tears stung his eyes. Why are you doing this? Its spine, symbols lit up along its side, and inside its head, suspended in light, was Sevilla. She wasn't unconscious. She was fighting. Her mind against the machine's code. She's being used as a key, Rian said, his voice low. Her DNA, her memories. She's the final bridge between their world and ours. Then we cut her loose, Terrell said, cocking his rifle. Rian shook his head. No, we don't fight it. Not yet. He stepped forward toward the machine, and as he did, Savia's eyes snapped open. She saw him. The serpent reared back, reacting violently. You shouldn't be here, Savia said through the light. You told me to find you, he replied. She smiled. I knew you would. The final scene slowed. Rian walked into the beam. The machine writhed, trying to reject him, but Sevilla reached out, her hand breaking the interface, and when their fingers touched, the system collapsed. The serpent shattered. The tower glowed bright, and a whisper echoed across the airwaves of every remaining architect node. They chose each other, not survival, not dominance, each other. The archive collapsed inward, and then silence. Rian and Savia stood in the center of the crater, smoke rising around them. The soldiers watched in stunned silence. He looked at her. Is it over? She shook her head. No, but we changed the question. The memory war. The dust had barely settled. Around the crater where the archive spine had collapsed, smoke coiled into the sunrise like ghosts being exorcised. The city in the distance flickered, not just physically, but digitally, like reality itself was being rewritten. And in the center stood two figures, a human and an alien woman, hand in hand, their bond defying a legacy built on divisions. Chest rose and fell as she stared into the horizon. Her hair, once perfectly braided in ritual, now tangled in ash. Her skin shimmered faintly, the result of lingering neural contact with the architect interface. Rian didn't let go of her. They both knew it wasn't over, but neither expected what happened next. A sound, like a whisper carried through steel, echoed across the crater. Then the sky changed color. Not clouds, code. A massive lattice of ancient data symbols began crawling across the firmament, like circuitry awakening after eons of sleep. What the hell is that? Whispered Captain Terrell behind them. Savia's voice was soft, but filled with weight. It's them, the others, the Council of Architects. They've seen our choice. Rian turned sharply. You mean the ones who? She nodded. The ones who never forgave their creations for rebelling. The ones who still believe. Freedom is a disease. The sky cracked like glass. Suddenly, beams of black light descended from the clouds, hitting points all around the ruined landscape. Out of those beams, figures formed, tall, thin, draped in fractal robes made of light and metal. Their faces were featureless, only slits of glowing energy where eyes might have been, but they walked like monarchs. And when they spoke, it wasn't sound, it was emotion, forcefully transmitted. You are a failed anomaly, the lead architect said. It looked at Sevilla first, and you, it turned to Rian, are a mistake. The soldiers raised their weapons. Don't, Sevilla said. It won't matter. Not yet. Rian stepped forward. You kept her people in chains, used memory as prison. You erased truth and replaced it with obedience. Because truth without control leads to extinction. Another beam dropped behind them, forming a holographic projection of what looked like Earth but not the one they knew, a version swallowed by war, fire, and machines. This is your timeline without intervention. You killed yourselves, again and again. We simply Adjusted. Rian clenched his fists. You didn't adjust. You enslaved. You rewrote. Savia stood beside him. And now we rewrite it back. The air shivered. The architects raised their arms, and suddenly, the memory field exploded outward. A wave of raw historical data crashed through the land like a tsunami. The soldiers around them dropped to their knees, clutching their heads as visions poured in. Not illusions, but real recorded pasts. Entire civilizations, destroyed and rewritten. Rebellions crushed before they began. Entire alien races turned into code for experimentation. And at the center of it all, Savia's people, the Arquali, once scholars, dreamers, scientists, now reduced to living archives of pain. Reprogrammed over centuries, Rian staggered under the weight of it, his brain filled with echoes of screams and songs, of stars being born and erased. Then, clarity. He understood what the architects were doing. This is a memory war, he said aloud. They're not trying to fight us physically. They're trying to drown us in a version of the past where we're the enemy. Savia nodded grimly. If they can override our understanding of history, they control the future. And so the real war began. Not with bullets, but with memory. Back at the rebel camp, Toril activated a neural shielding system developed for deep space explorers. An anti-corruption firewall that filtered psychic noise. It worked temporarily, but the architects adapted fast. Every hour, new waves of corrupted data pulsed through the region, reshaping memories, identities, even alliances. A soldier who had once lost a sister in war now remembered killing her. A hybrid girl, Hafarquali, forgot who her father was until Savia touched her forehead and restored it. They're not erasing us, she said. They're confusing the foundation of who we are. If we forget what we love, what we fight for, they win. Rian stood before a mirror, watching flickers of false memories swirl in his eyes, moments of cruelty that never happened. A version of himself abandoning Savia on a battlefield, another where he traded alien lives for technology, one where he joined the architects. It all felt so real, but then one voice broke through hers. You gave me my name back, Rian Holt. You gave me more than memory. You gave me a future. Don't let them take that away, not even in your mind. And with that, he roared, smashing the mirror. The false timeline shattered. The war moved faster. Savia discovered that her neural signature could repel architect corruption, but only in short bursts. They needed amplification. In the heart of the fallen archive, they found what they were looking for. The seed engine, a core relic designed to preserve chosen histories, capable of broadcasting memory across light years. Toril frowned. It's broken. No, Savia said. It just hasn't been connected to a living source in centuries. Rian stepped forward. I'll do it. She grabbed his arm. If you link with it, you'll be exposed to every version of your past, real or rewritten. You could lose yourself. He looked her in the eye. Then anchor me. Remind me who I am. They connected him. The seed engine came online, humming like a heartbeat the size of a mountain. Rian's consciousness was launched into a storm of memory by millions of voices, faces, futures. He saw Earth burn and rebuild. He saw the Arquali rise and fall. He saw a version of Savia where she never escaped, where she never learned to smile. He saw himself as a tyrant, as a savior, as a shadow, and finally, he saw her memory of him, the day he freed her. You don't belong to anyone, he'd said, least of all me. And yet, he'd stayed. That was the truth that pulled him back. Not power, not control, love. With a scream, Rian expelled the corruption. The seed engine flared and projected a counter-memory across the entire zone, an unfiltered broadcast of Savia's past, her songs, her family, her people. Not rewritten, restored. The architects reeled. Their code faltered. They began collapsing like faulty algorithms unable to sustain themselves outside the corrupted matrix. They're unraveling, Toril shouted. Keep broadcasting. Then came the last architect, taller than the rest. Its voice didn't scream. It mourned. You were supposed to be better than us. Savia stepped forward. Maybe we are. And what if you fail again? Rian joined her. Then we'll fail free. The final architect extended a hand and crumbled into dust. The lattice in the sky disintegrated. The false timelines dissolved. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the truth was the only thing left standing. Later, on the edge of the ruins, soldiers helped rebuild. Savia taught songs to hybrid children who had never heard their own tongue. The Earth teams repaired what was salvageable, mapping architect tech without fear now. Terrell nodded to Rian. You changed something, bigger than just this war. We all did. Savia walked beside them. Her eyes glowed not with power, but with clarity. I was born inside a cage of memory, she said quietly. But now I get to choose what to remember, and what to leave behind. Rian looked at her. What will you remember of me? She smiled softly. Everything. The skies were clear now, not just physically, but in the minds of all who had once suffered under the weight of manufactured memory. For the first time in generations, the truth belonged to those who lived it. But with freedom came uncertainty, and with peace came difficult questions. Savia stood at the edge of the ruined archive, her eyes scanning the horizon. Where once stood massive towers of architect code, there now grew green sprouts, early signs of life, clawing its way back into the world they almost lost. She didn't speak. Not yet. Behind her, Rian approached in silence. He'd never seen her so still before, not even during the war. I thought you'd be with the council, Savia said quietly, still facing away. They're not my council, Rian replied. And besides, I needed to be here. She turned. There was something in her face, not pain, but something close to it, a hesitation, a truth too heavy to hold alone. It's over, she said. The architects are gone. My people are free. The timelines have stabilized. And yet Rian waited. I don't know who I am now. They walked slowly through the clearing ruins. The charred remains of knowledge once weaponized, now nothing more than ash and stone. Savia touched a broken piece of a memory column, where ghostly figures still flickered in and out, echoes of the Arkwali past. For so long, she said, I believed I was a prisoner with a name someone else gave me. Then I believed I was a survivor, a warrior, a weapon. And now, she turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper, now I'm just a woman, alone in a galaxy she no longer understands. Rian didn't speak right away. He understood what she was feeling more than she knew. The battles were over. The purpose that had kept them moving forward, revenge, rebellion, resistance, was gone. What was left? Who were they now? They found the old transport, the same ship Rian had used to smuggle her off the slave world over a year ago. It had been repaired, more or less. He sat on the open ramp while Sevia stepped inside, running her fingers along the old seats. A quiet nostalgia filled the space. This was the first place I ever felt safe, she murmured. He chuckled. You nearly stabbed me with a shard of pipe the first time I opened that hatch. I didn't trust you yet. She turned, watching him. Why did you free me, Rian? He looked up. You know why? No, I know what happened, but not why. You could have left me, should have. A personal slave branded with architect code wasn't worth the trouble. He stood, walked up to her, met her eyes, because I saw someone who wasn't broken, just buried, under orders, under lies. And I thought, if she ever stood on her own 2 feet again, really stood, she'd change the galaxy. A pause. Think you have. Outside, the night wind had picked up. The stars shimmered like watchful eyes. Sevilla stepped out of the ship. And now what? Where do we go from here? The next few days were a blur of politics and rebuilding. The Unified Council of Freed Worlds convened on the ruins of the archive, a symbolic gesture. They invited Sevilla to speak. Some feared her, others revered her. She stood in a hall once built to silence voices like hers, and told them the truth. Not a war speech, not a call to arms. Just truth. The greatest lie is that obedience equals peace, she said. We were not designed to serve. We were not born to forget. We are living stories, and stories deserve to be told in full. The hall was silent. Then someone stood, clapped, then another, and another. Later that night, alone again, she sat atop the archive's highest tower. Rian found her there, staring at the stars. Some of the council want to name the rebuilt cities after you, he said. Savia's Landing, Queen's Reach. She laughed softly. I'm not a queen. You could be. I don't want power, Rian. He sat beside her. Then what do you want? She looked at him, not past him. At him, her voice cracked just a little. I want to stop surviving and start living. At beat. But I don't want to do it alone. The stars wheeled overhead. A shooting star crossed their view. Brief. Burning. Beautiful. Rian stood and held out his hand. Then don't. She hesitated. and for the first time, she looked afraid, not of war, but of hope. He didn't pull his hand back. Instead, he said, I didn't rescue you to own you. I stood beside you because I believed in you. And now I'm asking something else. Not as your commander, not as your rescuer. A deep breath, but as a man who loves you. Her eyes widened. He knelt. The desert wind lifted a thin layer of dust around them as the moons rose behind her like twin halos. Marry me. Silence. Then tears. Not of sadness, of release. Sevilla laughed through her tears. You idiot. He smiled. That's not a no. She stepped closer, took his hand. It's a yes. The vow ceremony wasn't royal. There were no crowns. No parades. Only a circle of friends, former enemies, and strangers who had all been changed by the war. And by her story. Terrell stood by Rion's side. The hybrid children sang in old Arkwali dialects, the language finally being taught freely. And as Sevilla stepped forward in simple ceremonial robes, no weapons, no armor, she took his hand and spoke words that would later be carved into the monument in the rebuilt Archu Plaza. I was born a prisoner of another's past, but today I vow to write my own future beside the one who saw me not as a slave, or a warrior, or a queen, but simply as Sevilla and I, Rion Holt, he said, vow to love the woman who turned a war into a second chance, not just for herself, but for all of us. I vow not to lead her, nor follow her, but to walk with her, always. They kissed that the crowd erupted in joy. It was a beginning, not of a legend, but of a life. Epilogue. Months later, on the outer rim of Architect Space, a beacon was activated. A warning to any who would attempt to rewrite history again. On it was carved one sentence: freedom is not given, it is remembered. In the distance, a sleek ship moved through the stars, crewed by explorers, not soldiers. On its bridge, Rion and Sevilla stood side by side, no longer fleeing, no longer fighting, but discovering. Together. Final message, story lesson. In a universe built on systems of control, the most radical act isn't rebellion, it's love. The kind of love that restores memory, rewrites fate, and refuses to let the past define the future. To love without ownership, to stand without fear, to vow something not just for one person but for an entire future. The end.